an organizer and may now speak to any other organizers or panelists on the line. When you are ready to begin the presentation, press the Start Broadcast button on the GoToWebinar control panel and allow the hear you. The system will notify you once you begin your broadcast. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everybody, my name is Jennifer Stirrup and I wanted to say thank you very much for joining me today. Now you're probably wondering why you're listening to me and why you're not listening to our original speakers. Well, unfortunately Eric had to drop out, so I'm doing this at the very last moment, so I hope you'll be very patient and bear with me. So the first thing I'd like to do is share with you the news about the PASS Business Analytics Conference. What I'd like to do is if anyone is interested in coming to the conference, please email me directly and I'll be able to give you a discount of $150. So please do email me. I am jen.stirrup@sequelpass.org. So SQL Rally Nordic, that will be in Copenhagen in Denmark at the beginning of March. We will have Mr. SQL Server himself. And if you register with this code, PASS Chapters 5, then you'll be able to get a 5% discount. Again, if you can't find any of this information, just email me at jenstirrup.com and I'll do my best to help you. Alright, now you'll be pleased to know there's an absolute ton of virtual chapters. So I think what we should do here is look at just how many there are. Now there's so many, I'm so pleased to see that there's so many, because I really think there's such a passion for data at the moment, and obviously we're the Excel BI VC, and if you're listening to this one you might be interested in business analytics or business intelligence as well. So here's some virtual chapter meetings that we're having this month. I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that we've got some in Spanish and Russian as well as English. We are a global organisation and we obviously can share lots of information across the world. If you are interested and would like to speak for the VCs, please let me know and I'll be more than happy to facilitate that for you. Up and coming SQL Saturdays. So in March and February we have a few in the US, Cleveland and Tampa, Phoenix. Internationally we had Melbourne last weekend, got Vienna at the end of the month and another one, Brisbane in Australia. In April we have Budapest, and as you say we have SQL Saturday Edinburgh, and that will be taking place at the beginning of June. So if anyone is interested, please do volunteer. I'd love to have people speaking. Now this is the point I'd like to announce that Thomas LeBlanc is now taking over as the Excel BI VC. I just want to thank Thomas for his support and his leadership in leading the technical community in this area, and I'm sure he'll do an absolutely fantastic job. He's a really experienced VC lead and I think he'll really be able to give this virtual chapter the love and attention it deserves. So who are PASS? Well, you're probably wondering who these people are. These are some of the people that work at PASS headquarters. If you ever interact with PASS, you probably speak to some of these people now and again. They are an awesome bunch of people and I love working with them. It's been my absolute pleasure to serve on the board and work with these really talented, bright, dedicated and clever people. They inspire me every day. So if any of the PASS team are listening, thanks guys. Big shout out for you all. So how to stay involved? sequelpass.org is obviously where we are at. And you'll find us there, obviously open 24 hours. And again, any questions, just email me or use the Twitter there. So who am I? I'm Jen Stirrup, MVP. I've got a photograph at the right hand side, my updated one. My previous one was done by a gentleman in the UK, Rodney Kidd. So Rodney did a great photograph of me, but then I decided to take this one because it showed less wrinkles and photoshopped my teeth so they looked whiter. So I like this one now. So what do? Well, I wrote a book in Tableau. I presented various things. So I did Picture Decoded, I'm a Tech Ed alumni, presented SQL Bits, which is taking place in March, at the beginning of the month, of March, and I do lots of things for PASS. So all exciting stuff, exciting times. Anyway, enough about me. Now, it wouldn't be a VC session unless you showed off some jokes. So I love Dilbert, and I think the thing here is that we use Excel, we use data all of the time, and big data is sometimes defined as whatever does not fit in an Excel spreadsheet. And what you probably find is, for a lot of people, that is a big data problem. So, but we would not be where we are without Excel, I think. It's Excel's 30th birthday this year. So I think we should have a big shout out for Excel generally, what it does for us. So the session today is all about cube functions in Excel and what we would use them for. Now, because the last speaker dropped out, unfortunately I've not had much time to do a demo for you. I've just managed to cobble together some information. Hopefully the original speaker will come back at another point. And what I'd like to do here is start to introduce Excel cube functions. Now you can use Excel cube functions to extract data from cubes, from tabular models, and also Power Pivot models as well. So why would you actually use cube functions? Let's talk about the why, and then we'll talk about what they actually do. So, well, first of all, I don't know about you, but I think sometimes pivot tables have driven me demented. So if I've wanted to do an asymmetric report, where I might want to do this year and last year, but I've only got columns for last year, I've got all 12 months, but for this year I've only got a few months. So sometimes if you want to even insert columns in a pivot chart, it just doesn't look right, and you end up copying and pasting and putting things together. Excel is wonderful because it allows you flexibility, but sometimes it doesn't really allow you to do things the way you want to do. Personally, get pivot data is something that drives me bananas. It probably does you as well. And you might actually use get pivot data now and again. Instead of using that, what we can do is use Excel cube functions. So why would you use them? Well, first of all, people's worksheets get huge, and they do. I've come across customers. I had one customer, she really made me laugh because she had 30 Excel workbooks open all at the same time. I didn't know that was even possible. So I asked her, why have you got 30 Excel workbooks open? And she said, well, I need to refer to them all. I said, well, not all at the same time, you don't. She did complain that her computer was running slow. So that's because Excel is running 30 workbooks all at one time. And the thing about using Excel functions is you can only extract the data that you actually need from the cube. You don't need to take the full thing. You certainly don't need 30 Excel workbooks open all at the same time. There's only so much that the computer can process. There's only so much that you can process as well. As humans, we have quite limited working memories. And, just give yourself and your brain and computer a break and just take the data that you want from the cube. Sometimes users don't feel comfortable navigating pivot table. They might say to you, well, I want to put a column in here, but I get this get pivot data thing and it's driving me nuts. And you can say, yes, I understand your pain. And by using Excel cube functions, we can start to take some of the data out that we need and flexibly move it around. Now, I don't know about you, but having workbooks smaller in size is always a bonus. It's always a good thing. And the reason for that is people do not like workbooks that are large. They take forever to open. People like things fast. And the final thing is you can also design dashboards as well. Now, people like dashboards. Obviously, they run their business on them. But sometimes you need to do some fairly funky things. And if you want to use customized NDX, for example, you would start to use cube functions then. Now, if you're using analysis services, what you probably find is you might need to integrate different data models. Analysis services doesn't allow you really to mash up very well inside analysis services. What you have to do is take data from or connect to the cube and then try and mash it with other things there. That's quite difficult sometimes. We spend a lot of time trying to prepare data so we get it into the shape that we want, to get it into the dashboard that we want. So what we can do is make the logic more readable simply by using some of the cube functions available to us. So there's lots of very strong reasons to do them, and mainly it's all about speed, it's all about accuracy, it's all about flexibility, just to summarise. And if you can do these things for your customers and your business users, then you'll have happy users, and that's basically what we all want. So when not to use cube functions? Well, if you can get a pivot table or a pivot chart just to deliver the same result, then you probably would save yourself time. The thing with pivot table is they're fairly structured and fairly accurate anyway in terms of the interactivity. People do tend to like to use them. They're also super quick to create these report types, so if you can use them, then why not? When you need some sort of interactivity, you can simulate things like sorting and filtering with cube functions, but it takes more time to develop. It's all about where do you put the cost. You can try to work out all of these things in your cube functions, or it might, if only saves you a few nanoseconds, and it may not well be worth it. So, for example, when sets with counts need to be displayed, and the sum of the cube functions will return errors if you're requesting a rank beyond the set size. So if I were you, I would think about the flexibility, think about the end user, and think about if do any errors arise when you actually use some of these functions. So here's some recommendations. So first of all, we can learn the cube functions by starting with a pivot table and just simply converting it into formulas. You can start to learn some MDX as well. MDX is not dead, and you don't have to use it, but it does allow you some power to go beyond the autocomplete functions. It also allows you to go through a sort of software life cycle in your system as well. You can understand the errors a bit better. I tend to see spreadsheets that are riddled with errors, divide by C roots, something like that. What you can do is create a globals worksheet, and you would use that one to define cube formulas and then annotate them. So what that would give you is a sort of landing page where you've got all your formulas and all your documentation, and you've got it right within the workbook as well. And I think that's probably quite a useful thing. Having everything in one place, it tends to be how people find it a bit more easy to navigate and find the information that they want. So what you can do is you can hide rows, columns or worksheets that contain cube formulas as well. So that means that you can hide your formulas. The business users will find it easier just simply because they don't have to worry about formulas they don't need to know anything about. Avoid complex cube formulas. Now what you could do is actually, if you have very complex formulas, is ask your analysis services developer to write the formulas for you in the cube. And that obviously saves you a lot of time because you don't have to do it. It also means that they are repeatable as well. But if you end up having to write cube formulas, break them down into smaller testable chunks. And then you can nest them if you like, then you can build them up so that one chunk refers to another chunk. And then it's all about data lineage, because what you're doing there is saying, well, that number comes from there, and that number comes from there. And it gives people confidence in being able to assess and understand the data. Now, what you can do as well is use parameter-driven designs, which will give you a lot of flexibility and variability, and also user interactivity, all the activities. And that's good because users will love it. They probably spend a lot of time in Excel, and what's good about that is about trying to make them happy when they're doing it. Otherwise, they will just mash data around the place and they won't share that information from you. And all of a sudden, what you find is Excel has legs. It goes around the organisation, it sits in people's mailboxes, it sits in people's hard drives, and you can't find it again. You don't actually know what is the version of the truth, what is it you're trying to look for. So you can use dynamic expressions as well based on Excel formula, and because it looks kind of like Excel formula, it's something you've got a good starting point with anyway. Now slicers and timelines, they're fantastic things. They allow you to really interactively filter the report. Users like them. They see the slicers as buttons. They're used to navigating websites, and they understand that these are the buttons that they need to press to make things happen. So using template functions to copy and paste into ranges. Now that's useful for certain types of formulas. What we're going to do here is I've got a list of formula which I'm going to give you here. Oops, where's it gone? Right, so here we've got a number of functions available to us. So I'm just going to talk about each of these and what they actually are. So what we have here, the very first one at the top of the list is cube member. And what that will do is it will go off, cube member will give you the function that will fetch, it's the function that will fetch the member or the tuple defined by the member expression. So what that will give you is if you want to have a formula that gives you a result which is something like on promotion, then that will give you the member named on promotion from your dimension. That's all it gives you. So cube member just simply goes off and fetches the member that you need it to go and fetch. So we've got cube ranked member as well, and that returns the nth item from a set. So say for example, you might want to know, well, what is the top 5 items in this set? And that set could be, what is the top 5 selling products? So what we can do is build a set which has got the top 5 products in it, and cube ranked member will return, say for example, you ask it to give me number 1, the very first item from that set. Cube ranked member will go off, it will look at the set, and if you give it number 1, it will give you the value of the first member in that set. Similarly, if you give it the number 5, it will go and get the 5th item from a set. This can be very useful if you're building a top N or a bottom N report in Excel. So what you might want to do is your top 10 salespeople for the month or something like that. And in your report you want something that says, and this month's top salesperson is number 1 person. So what cube ranked member will do is it will go off and it will get the very first item for you and return that. So it saves you having to type in that dynamic expression into the Excel workbook every month. It will just go off and do it for you. Again, it doesn't have to be the first item, it could be the second or the third or whatever number you decide that you're going to give it. So we also have one here called CubeSet. And what CubeSet will give you is that function will fetch the set that you've asked it to go and get. Now that set could be something like countries. And if you ask it to give you the CubeSet for countries, it will go off and get you the set of countries in whichever customer geography hierarchy, for example, that you've specified. So you would use CubeSet and you might say something like, go off to my cube, look in this dimension, and give me all of the countries. So then CubeSet goes off to your geography dimension, because that's what you specified, gives you the list of countries, and says there's the set of countries available to you. And that's very useful for filtering. It's also useful for your slicers as well. Now CubeSet count, I talked about this one earlier, you have to be careful with this one, in case it returns an error message. But this one returns the number of items in a set. So it just simply say you've got a list in your customer, say you've got a list in your geography of 10 countries, then the CubeSet count would give you back the number 10. That's all it would be. So CubeSet value just simply gives you the actual value, but it gives you the aggregated value from the cube, which is filtered by whatever you've decided to filter by. So say for example, you wanted to know the value of the gross profit for a particular year, then you would give the cube value function a series of arguments. You would give it gross profit from your cube. First of all, you give it the cube name, then you'd give it profit, for example, something like that, and then you might give it the date, and then that would return the value, which is aggregated amount of that value for the particular date in question that you're looking for. So you can also have cube KPI member as well. In cube KPI member, you give that the connection, the KPI name, and the KPI property, and it will go off and get the KPI from the analysis services cube for you. So if you've ever wondered, does anybody actually use the KPIs in analysis services? What Cube KPI member does is it allows you to go off and get that information for you. Cube member property, what it does is it gives you the function, returns you the property of a member in the OLAP cube. So say for example you want to know what particular property of that member is. It could be something like you maybe specified a colour or something like that. It will go off and get it for you. So just before we move on, I know that was a lot of information there. I'm sorry it's all a bit ad hoc. I had to go and make up a quick presentation deck because I was suddenly down the speaker. So I've tried my best to make up for it. So if you bear with me, I'll just go back through that again just so everyone's clear. So the first one is cube member, which goes off and gets the member of the tuple defined by whichever member expression you've given it. Now we've got cube ranked member, and basically if you give it a set and you give it a number, it will go off and look at the set and it will get the value of whichever number you've given it. So if your set contains 10 items and you use cube ranked member to give you number 5, it will go off and give you the 5th one. Cube set, that will go off and create a set for you. And what to do there is if you give it, for example, geography dimension or something like that and tell it you want countries, then what it will do is it will return the set of countries in the customer geography hierarchy, and that just gives you the value that you need. Then we've got cube set count. Now this function returns the number of items in a set, so if your set contains 10 items, then it will go off and return the number 10 to you. Then we've got cube value. What cube value does is it fetches the aggregated value from the cube, filtered by various arguments. So say for example you want to know the aggregated value for the gross profit. Then what you would do is you would say, well, I'm connecting to the particular cube, and then you would give it the gross profit as the argument. Then you would give it the number of dimensions and the dimension attributes that you want to filter by. So that could be by date, for example. Cube KPI member, as I said before, just to make it clear, this function returns a KPI from the OLAP cube. If you've ever wondered if anybody uses them, I personally don't see that very often at all. But there might be some people out there. I think I've only had one customer ever use those. I don't know why that is. I think they just don't like the visualizations. So cube member property, and what you see there is that function returns a property of a member in the OLAP cube. Alright, so before we move, I'd like to go back again. The reason I wanted to go through there is because some of the recommendations actually involve some of the functions we've just been talking about. So what we have here is you can use template functions to copy and paste into ranges if you want, and we talked about cube ranked member and cube value functions. And if you want to go off and get the value of the cube at a particular point, then that's probably really useful because it will just go off and get the value that you need. It's useful because it's dynamic and it saves you going off and having to retype it in again and again and again. So it's a bit of work to set up, but then it's just fine when you've actually got it in place. So we have to be careful with expressions can't be greater than 255 characters. That's the limit of an argument to a function in Excel. So what you can do is use references to cells that contain the expression, and then that increases the text length size of what you need. But if you find you've got lots and lots and lots of arguments that you need to use, maybe just better put the function in the analysis services queue. Some advanced scenarios that we have here. So we can integrate members and values from multiple models. And that's what I like about the cube functions. I think it gives you that sort of flexibility to go and say, well, actually I need to do some mashups here. Sometimes I've worked with cubes where we've got more than one cube and people want to put the data together. So rather than have multiple facts tables and do a lot of work in that area, it's actually been for a much more spot ad hoc analysis. and in that case it's just been easier just to go off and sort things out from that angle, just doing a quick spot analysis, use some cube functions, get the data that we need, and we don't actually have to build a new supercube that will hold everything. So in other advanced scenarios, what you could do is use the data mining add-in as well, and if you look at the table analysis tools Excel add-in, that might be a useful one as well, just to get more out of your data. So if you think there's not much in these add-ins, I really recommend that you go off and have a look at them. Perhaps we'll ask somebody to present on that topic. It would be a great topic, I think, to look at the add-ins. It's worthy in its own right. So we can create Excel tables for other visualizations as well. You can use Visio to connect to Excel. And the good thing is that Visio is such a great and really powerful way of visualizing data. You could set up KPIs in Visio and use those wonderful little jelly baby men and make them different colours, for example, when something happens in the business. So I've done some really nice things around that and users love it. So how do you convert pivot table to formulas? We can see here just a quick picture. I got this from Eric, the original speaker, so thank you very much for that, Eric. What we have here is, if you go to pivot tables, then analyze, and then you see the OLAP tools there, you can actually convert to the actual formulas. So here we can see for FY 2007, we've got this figure here. We just see the number at the top here. But then if we convert that to formulas, down we see for cube value here, what we have is we can actually get the value of the data and use the formula there, and that just gives you a great insight to how the formulas are constructed. Obviously you've got books online as well, and that will give you a good starting point. So if you want to know how the formulas are constructed, go to pivot tables, analyze, OLAP tools, and then look for converts to formulas. Okay, so that's just a quick summary of the 7 functions. The ones that probably you will find most useful are cube set and cube member. Yeah, so you want to know what set you're using, and you want to go off and get specific member. If you do any really nice stuff with the Excel and the Visio, why don't you let us know? We should build up a gallery of these sort of dashboards so we can share them with people and inspire one another. So finally, some references. I had to put together a deck really quickly after I lost my original speaker, which is a real pity, so I want to say thank you to Eric for sending his deck through. And what I did as well was I did some research and found Mark Ginnibar and Peter Myers. I've got lots of information all about Excel cube functions, and there's a website there, www.excelcubefunctions.com, and that really is us for today. So what I'm going to do is from the beginning. So if you have any questions for me personally, then, oops, you don't want to see all that, do you? What you do want to see is the presenter on the slideshow. That's much better. There we go, that's the stuff. So there's my email address there, jenstirrup@sequelpass.org, and I'll put that in the chat window. If anybody has any questions, then please don't hesitate to get in touch. I'm sorry today was a bit rushed. I did this at the last minute because I wanted you to have the information rather than cancel it. I didn't want to cancel the session. Hopefully we'll get our original speaker back to another day. But in the meantime, if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to get in touch. And wherever you are in the world, good morning, good evening, and good night. And I don't see any questions. So with that, we will call it a night. And thank you everybody for listening. I'll put this up on the YouTube channel, and I hope that it was helpful, and that we'll see you another time for more in-depth information. Thank you. Bye.